time. Um, Very little business is ever done. The players that move are generally players that are angling for a move, like Van Dijk. Um, Good players at clubs that are doing well won't leave. Good players at clubs that are doing badly won't be sold. So it's a very tricky window, but as ever, I think fans look forward to it more than they really should. So I kind of advise everyone to just temper expectations. Picking up your point earlier, Tim, you said about our last bit of business in January was Delhi, which you're absolutely right. The one before that was Lewis Holtby in 2013. And then you have to go all the way back to Louis Saha under Harry Redknapp before that. So January is a time when the club is generally reluctant to do business. And as we've seen through the Van Dijk transfer, if you want someone badly, you're generally going to have to overpay in January. In terms of what we need, Poch has been interested in his comments just recently. About a week or so ago, I think he said something about the club needing to define their targets a lot earlier to be able to compete with the bigger clubs because we have a different transfer strategy than the money-rich clubs. And that to me sounded like a potential purchase and loan back arrangement like we did with Delhi. And my thoughts immediately went to Sessengon when he said that. Having said that, yesterday I think he said that we will be looking for players that will improve the squad. But if we don't see any players that will improve our squad, then I'm happy with the squad as it is. So make of that what you will. In terms of what we need, just to answer your question, I think central midfield is possibly an issue. Dembele is not looking like the player he was last season, and he's injured again now.
And his contract's expiring soon. He's going in with 18 months on it. So once we hit this summer window, he'll have a year left on his contract.
Okay, so all right, so we've unearthed Harry Winks, which is great, but he's still in the infancy of his career at Spurs, and perhaps we shouldn't expect too much. He had a little dip in form before he got injured, so but he's definitely one for the future. Now Barkley's the one that everyone's been talking about since last summer. I'd be receptive to having that transfer done. Problem with that particular player is that he hasn't played all season due to injury. Chelsea were sniffing around him in the summer, but he decided to stay at Everton. Some of the bookies are making Chelsea odds on to purchase Barkley this time around. I'm mindful of that. I think Barkley would like to come to Spurs rather than Chelsea. That's just my own personal hunch. I've got no proof to back that up. So that one may yet play out. And if he isn't fit, then that may yet not occur until the summer when he's actually on a free and won't cost us anything. So that'll be one to keep an eye on. And yeah, Sessengon would be great because the Danny Rose thing is still up in the air. Danny Rose seems to have sort of screwed his head on a little bit for the time being, so which is a good thing. But the way he's been talking, he's not really said anything that's committed himself beyond the end of this season. So we'll have to see how that one plays out. So it may just be a question of getting Sessengon in, perhaps loaning him back. And if the club does work things out with Danny Rose, then who knows? It might even be Ben Davies that gets moved on in future. So
also with Sessengon, I mean, is he really playing left back now? Because recently he was playing up as a left winger in a front three for Fulham. I think are we seeing a possible Gareth Bale transition with Sessengon right now, where he may not be a left back by the time we bring him in?
It's quite a hat trick this year. Yeah.
He's got 8 goals. 8 goals for Fulham. And easily the best player in the championship. Not just on Fulham's squad. In the championship itself, he is easily the best player.
And
lots of reports saying,
it's amazing.
Yeah, And lots of reports saying that he has his eye on Spurs. So we'll see. Going back to Barkley, I've gone on and off on him, but within the context of the situation that we're in and what our needs are, Vass, you just pointed out, central midfield, Dembele. I mentioned that there's nobody to really push Eriksen. Barkley's young, not going to be terribly expensive. He could, if he's healthy, make an impact now. I think he's actually back training. He's just not back training with the first team. Poch always likes to have players that can fill multiple roles. He's a British player, so if he is healthy, he might play a role in the Champions League in the spring. You never know. So I don't know. That to me is probably if you told me that we sorted out Sessengon and we had Barkley, I think that'd be a very, very good winter window.
Hey, Sam, let me ask this. You mentioned, and as did Vass, that Barkley's out of contract and can be gotten for nothing. And there's a number of players who are like that, right? Sanchez and Ozil come to mind immediately, and there's others out there. When can these players, for those people that don't know out there, when can these players maybe even sign pre-contracts with clubs, even before that 6 month runs out?
After the January window, I'm pretty sure.
So after the window closes, they can sign a pre-contract with another club.
Yes, and here, I'll give you guys a quick rundown because we're talking a lot about this, about January is a difficult window because players aren't really available. And I agree 100%. So what players can be available? I think the biggest look right now is those with expiring contracts. And I've kind of gone through, made a spreadsheet of all the names that I've seen being floated about there. And of everyone that's being put out there, people with expiring contracts in less than 6 months this summer are Ross Barkley, 2 central midfielders from Schalke, Max Meyer and Leon Goretzka, and Luke Shaw, although United does have a club option for 1 year. Whether they'll pick up on that, I'm not sure, but those 4 players have an expiring contract this upcoming June. If you look forward to ones with only 18 months, I think you can still try and get at those players because look at the situation Arsenal's in with Sanchez and Ozil. You don't want to go into a league year with a player only having 12 months left on their contract because you run into the situation where they get to decide to go wherever they want. So some names that have been thrown about that have contract expiring in 2019 is another 17-year-old, Jan Fiete-Arp. That's someone that I've seen his name floating about, and he's a central attacking midfielder, possible central forward from Hamburg. You also have Yves Bissouma, Angel Di Maria. I mean, some of those players have expiring contracts. So I think you might be able to try and get into one of those players who has 18 months to 6 months left on their contract. I think that's probably the sweet spot in this winter window. But talking about difficulty with obtaining players from other Premier League squads, does anyone really think we're going to sign Zaha, Lanzini, Richarlison? Their names keep being thrown about, but I don't see any way that their clubs let them go in the winter window. And even those 3 clubs, particularly Palace and West Ham, they could be battling relegation. You think they're going to even sell us their players?
No, they won't. And Zaha just confirmed in a post-match press conference that he'll be at Palace till the end of the season. Okay, you can take it with a pinch of salt, but I think Spurs fans need to calm down on the whole Zaha thing. Yeah.
I will say, so Paris Saint-Germain, that's another situation where you could look at bringing in a player given their concerns with the financial fair play. And I'll just real briefly give the rundown on what it is. Clubs can't have losses over 75 or over 27 million over a 3-year period. So they've got themselves out of trouble this year by doing the Mbappe deal on loan. But once that gets signed permanently this summer with Neymar and Mbappe, they're going to have 3 transfer windows before the June 2019 calendar year ends where they're going to need to sell some players. They need to make profits. Otherwise, they're going to be hit with financial fair play restrictions. So I think, PSG, even though some of these players have long-term contracts, I think that's a place you could look because that's how we got Serge this summer. That's how Juventus got Blaise Matuidi. They had to sell these players.
Who have they got that might be a fit for us?
So, well, not necessarily a fit for us, but what was rumored is these players were put on the transfer market. And some of them were very upset about it and have come out publicly talking about it. But Di Maria, his contract expires in 2019. Javier Pastor, his contract expires in 2019. His agents come out and said he may have played his last match for Paris Saint-Germain.
God, he's a fantastic player.
Lucas?
Just a bit inconsistent. But
Lucas would be a good player.
Yeah.
His expires in 2019. Rabiot, we've been linked with him many times in the past. His expires in 2019.
Yeah.
Julian Draxler, he's a newer player. His expires in 2021, but he's really upset and has been talking about it in the media. And then Cavani.
Yes, please.
I mean, and that's just...
Absolutely, yes, please.
And the thing with Cavani is, you have Neymar up there, but you're going to need to make a big sell so that you don't get hit with these restrictions from FIFA. They've already launched an investigation. I think they'll be fined once the calendar year ends on June 30th of 2018 because they did that Mbappe deal as a loan. So he doesn't go on the books. But when that transfer goes through, they're going to need to sell players. So whether it's this window, now looking forward to that, or starting in the summer, some of these big names could be available just because out of necessity, they're going to have to get rid of them to not be hit with all these restrictions.
That's going to be really interesting. And on top of that, I've heard Neymar is not all that happy. You can read into what you want to out of any article that you read, but there's something going on there, whether it's from a coaching standpoint, a front office standpoint. There's something going on at PSG that is making players unhappy. Now they play in a league that's, for all intents and purposes, a 5-team league. That doesn't give them any real competition. So based on talent alone, they're going to stay at the top of that table. Less Monaco, and they're not having a great year either.
Some good players on that list. They might not be too outrageous from a wage standpoint. Rabiot, Lucas Moura particularly.
And with all that being said, really what we're trying to get at here is there's not many options in January. It's going to really take something like an expiring contract, a freak incident like with PSG where you're not going to have that at many clubs, with the financial fair play having to sell players, or players being unhappy with their current club and pushing for a move like we saw with Van Dijk. I think that's what it takes to get a player in this January window.
Unless you want to spend a truckload of money and a non-expired, a long-term contract doesn't mean much. But, the chances of us doing that, I get it.
It begs the question, though, Sam, and I'm glad you brought that up again, because it brings up the question, would you rather spend that boatload of money and pay a little bit extra now, or let some of these players, especially the younger ones, season another 6 months and have outstanding second halves to the season, and now you're going to be fighting, an even bigger uphill battle in the summer. Sessengon is not only linked to us, but I've seen in the pressers where he's linked to not only Real Madrid but Manchester United and some of these other massive clubs because of the potential that this kid has. I'd rather pay the 30 or whatever the hell million it's going to cost now than have to pay 50 or 60 in the summer.
I'll say this on Sessengon. They're saying 25 million, 35 million. I think if he goes in this January, just the hype around him, all these other teams being interested, I think it's going to look more like 40, 45 million. Look at what we paid for Davinson Sanchez.
Yeah.
I think you're going to be looking at that type of money to get him even in January right now. And I think it's worth it.
This is what does me in about. It's so funny. I see all these tweets throughout the week, ranking transfer fees and also wages. Sanchez, we didn't pay 42 million pounds for Davinson Sanchez. If he fulfills all of his obligations or sort of performance attributes within his that was in the contract, then we'll pay 42 million for him. We paid 25 million pounds for him. So it's like, all this stuff really does me in. And you know what? And I might not even be right there. There's no repository. It's all rumors and innuendo, but we did not stroke a check for 42 million pounds for him. I'm pretty sure of that. Will we? We may very well be. But in retrospect, it turned out to be good money. I can't see a championship play. Do you really, even as nutty as things are, do you really think that somebody's going to pay 40 million pounds for a player who's never stepped foot in the Premier League?
Yes, I do.
Oh, I think so.
I really do. The money is being just thrown about right now.
If there's one kid that'll, for as much as he's touted up and for as much as he's scouted, this all falls into Steve Hitchens' lap, right? It's Steve Hitchens, maybe a little bit of John McDermott, but Pochettino and Levy combined with Steve.